I just like want to just sit to make a video. I'm not sure if you can hear actually. Nice. But I think we still will be talking. I'll still be telling you some stories. So let me put you down. So hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Knit Art History, where I'm sitting telling you some art history stories while knitting. And welcome to another video about I'll tell you about another very extraordinary Ukrainian artist, Ukrainian woman, Ukrainian photographers I was mentioning in the previous video about Kulchitska, because I found out about her not so long ago myself and fell in love with her basically. So I will make a note also about you might hear some kind of like additional noise on the background. They're going from the outside. Because I have my window open because the air sirens going on in all of Ukraine, because we have at least a few dozens of rockets right now flying to our territory. So yeah, you may ask why I'm here, because I don't have where to hide. The nearest very effective hiding place is the metro, and it is like we have the nearest one like 10-15, 10 is like if you will walk very fast, but if not, it's like 15-20 minutes outside out here. Yeah, not very nice. Not very nice situation. A lot of us were just sitting at home, basically, using the rule of two walls. That means that you need to hide somewhere in your house, in your place, where there is like at least two walls that hide you. So the first wall will like take all of the power, and the second wall will take all of the shellings and stuff like that. So you will not get like very hurt. Obviously, if the racket will like get through your house, like nothing will help you, nothing will save you. But if something will get like someone near you, near the house, so yeah, so you will not get like completely hurt. And so I don't use it even now because I'm sitting directly near the window. But again things will happen. I have my news on here, so if something will happen, if something will first of all we'll hear it, but I hope we will not, and second of all I will read it. So yeah, so as I said, today we're going to be talking about amazing woman that I really myself felt in love. Why break glass right now? Like right now, this okay, we have also the place where they're taking the glass bottles for recycling, and oh my god, I hope that all of the sounds will not ruin anything, because I really don't want to close the window, because it's a little bit, I feel myself a bit safer when I can hear everything, because when I'm closing the window I can hear a damn thing. I can hear in the sirens. So yeah, I'm sorry, getting back. Sofia Yablonska, an amazing, I will call her artist, because photography is art, especially this black and white photography that was just developing back in the beginning of 20th century. And she has an amazing photos and all of this stuff. So yeah, so she is an amazing Ukrainian photographer, one of the first photographers, and she's like the first, like one of the first actually, not just Ukrainian women but overall women in cinematography, like women operator, and also a traveler. So she was one of the first, she was the first Ukrainian woman to make a travel around the world, and I think also one just overall of first people who were able to do that. She was she has a lot of unique photos, because she was able to get to the places where her male colleagues were not able to get. So but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. So yeah, so grab your food, drinks, whatever, sit down, relax, or do your choirs, what you need to do. I am with my knitting, and yeah, so let's dive in. So Sofia Yablonska, she was born on May 15 of 1907 in one of the villages in Lviv region. So this is a western part of Ukraine. And back then, this part was under the Rzeczpospolita, which is Poland, and she was born in a family of a priest. So because she was born in a family of priests, and she was like one of 4 children, 2 daughters, 2 sons. So she was able to got her primarily education, and a part of that she was going through a lot of different courses. She was learning a lot of new different interesting skills, like sewing, like typing, like how to be a secretary. She was also doing some acting courses, she was doing cinematography courses, and this is exactly what she that was her cup of tea, as we can say. So this is exactly what she wanted to do in her life. And starting from a very young age, she also dreamt about traveling. For example, she described one of the episodes in her book, Memories, like book about the father, Memories about the father. So she tried a vanilla, and she was so blown away about it that she wrote, "I will never see the distant country that exists like us, only on the other side of the globe. And maybe one day I will fall into a very deep abyss. Maybe I will break through the ground and still go to the country where there is vanilla." Overall, as it said, she has a very close relationship with her father. She was even she was even saying that she is, she's like a continuation of him. And her father was actually a pretty smart man. So he was a priest, as I said, but he was also a very talented doctor. And instead to go into the real doctors, people were going to him, and he would do he would treat them. I think even I read that he was even doing surgeries sometimes. That's how skilled he was. And Sophia, she was helping him actually at a very, very young age. So she was assisting him on this type of operations. And yeah, but at one point, so Ivan Yablonsky, it's rather he was treating his patients for free, and that was the thing that doctors really didn't like. Apart that he was successful at treating people, he was treating them for free or no. So they sued him, if I'm not mistaken, and the church said to Ivan that he is not allowed to treat people. He is not allowed to play the role of a doctor. Because there is like real doctors for that. So he agreed, obviously, because they said that if he will not stop, he will lose his place in church. And yeah, so but he didn't really stop because he was so kind, that he couldn't really tell no to people that will still come and ask for some help. Unfortunately, he had one minus. He was a very big Russophile. So he, in his head, he had these visions that Russia is where everything is going on. And I mean, it's not something so unusual, because already in this period of time, there was, this illusion that something is better there, and you'll be more successful there and more rich and stuff like that, which, spoiler, is not. So because of this, because he was like fond of Russia, and he wanted to go there, and this is exactly what he did. So the first in the period of First World War, oh my god, yeah, they moved for six, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for 6 years in Russia. And they got all the way to Taganrog. I myself, to be honest, don't really know where it is, but it is apparently somewhere very, very far away. And that was an awful period of time. Because it turned out that no one is rich. There's basically nothing. Well, a part of that they were struggling there. They barely had any money. They were very poor. They also suffered from bullying from, like fellow Russians, and kids, especially Sophia, she was writing about the fact that in school she was bullied by kids, and she was writing that it was a very, very unhappy, unpleasant, and very hard period of time. And a part of that it was a hard time when they were like moving there. One of the sons, he died of typhus, or how it's correct to pronounce. They lived for a few years there. Yablonska's father, Ivan Yablonski, he was shocked about what he saw, and that is like not even near how he imagined like big empire to look like. He was healed, from this Russophilism, and they obviously decided to move back to Halichina at this part where Lviv region is, and some of the something blew up. Maybe I think that I need to stop, and I will continue when the air sirens will be like off, but yeah. Oh la la. Oh la la, this is something actually very big. So yes, I think I will stop, and I will get back to you when things will stabilize a bit. I'm back after 4 hours. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not the type of person that laughs when I'm nervous, but situation. So they were firing again on civilian infrastructure, because this is how they're fighting with us civilians. And well, by the news so far, one person died, at least here in Kiev. I'm getting, very influenceable by the news, and just the fact that I can't do anything is a little bit like, I don't know how to call it, this feeling, but I'm getting very emotional about things, and when I'm reading the news that people are losing their lives and stuff, and completely accidentally especially, so for me now it's important to sit and to talk about art. So we stopped where we stopped. We stopped on the fact that they get back into Halichina, and her father, he thoroughly, he examined his views and his beliefs, and after that he got his own parish, like in one of the villages. Again, I will not name you this village, because I myself have no idea where it's situated, and I'm pretty sure it won't say anything to you. But he got one of this. He became a priest in one of the villages. However, his family, his wife especially, she was like. She was not very fond of the idea, sitting in the village and not doing anything. So she decided to stay in Lviv. And she decided to stay in Lviv, and she continued to she started to work there. They basically rented oh my god, what is this day today? It's like, it's impossible. I am terrified of spiders, people, for you just to understand what is going on. And there's a spider on my wall. And just the fact that this creature got out of the place where my head is. This day really don't want me to tell you anything about Sophia Yablonska, but I still will tell you about her. Okay. Phew. I'm telling you, I'm very scared of spiders, and I'm just... Okay, what I was telling you. That her mom, Sophia's mom, she rented an apartment building, and she basically converted this into a hotel. and she was like renting rooms, renting apartments, and that's how they were getting money. His father was a priest in some of the villages. Kids with mom was living in Lviv. They were studying, and they, you know, they were starting to grow up, and they started to build their own lives. Her brother, he moved to Ternopil, another city in the western regions, and he, well, basically he created a cinema where Yablonska, where Sofia was working, and she basically was a director of this cinema, and she was doing everything, starting from decorating the scene and ending with with accounting and stuff like that. However, for a young, very ambitious woman, it was not enough, and she was, I mean, at this point right now she's like 18. She's 18 or 19, something like that. So she's very, very young. And for her ambitions, it was not enough just to be a director in a cinema, like in one of the cities. And her main dream and her main goal was to conquer Paris. You know, she really wanted to go to Paris because, again, as I was mentioning previously in the video of Kulchitska and with I think with Hamas, who also mentioned it a bit, that Paris was one of the art centers of Europe in this period of time, and so it's, you know, it's no surprise that she really wanted to go to Paris. She was saving money as much as she could while she was working in this cinema in Ternopil. And in 1927 she saved enough, and she got to Paris. There she there were like again, as I mentioned in Kulchitska video, that there were a lot of Ukrainians, actually Ukrainian artists and Ukrainian writers in Paris in this period of time. So here she met, and she became very good friends till the rest of their lives with one of the writers and travelers also, Stepan Levinsky. Then in 1928, at the beginning of 1928, she befriended Volodymyr Vinnichenko. So Vinnichenko is a very famous Ukrainian artist. Writer. And he's not just a writer. He also was a politician, and he lived in Paris because he ran for his life because he was in danger. And he is, you know, he's a very well known like trickster, I will call him even like that. He really liked women. So when he started to flirt with Sofia, because he was interested in her romantically, she backed off, and she politely, like a diplomat, told him no and refused his feelings, and he got very offended about that. So after this rejection, he started to call her this creature, nothing more, but just this creature. And another thing, just for you to understand what type of character was Vinnichenko. So he was friend with one of our, also again, very famous Ukrainian artist, Mykola Glushchenko. And Mykola Glushchenko, he was, I think I will make a video on him. My God, how many times I'm telling that I will make a video about someone? I mean, there's so many people, right? There's so many interesting stories that I really want to tell all of you and that are not so well known. But basically, Glushchenko, he was at some point, he was a spy. He was working on the Soviet government while being an artist, and he was basically spying on everyone. In Paris, on Vinnichenko also. And Vinnichenko, he was, well, pretty hurt when he found out that Glushchenko was basically spying on him, and he was writing down everything. Well, I mean, like, as far as I remember, not like completely everything. Glushchenko still had some also very warm feelings towards Vinnichenko, but still, you know, he was spying on him. But prior to that, when they were very close friends and they were in Paris, Glushenko and Vinnychenko, apparently. I mean, I found this in few of the articles, this information, and not just some kind of, like yellow press articles, like a very, the articles for a good, like art journals here in Ukraine. Well, basically, it was written that at some point Vinnychenko and Glushenko, they created a nudist beach in Paris, not somewhere else, in Paris. Where exactly in Paris? How? And what is most important, why? I don't know. But apparently I found this type of information, and I mean, it's like a little fun fact. It is more on the side of rumors and suspicions, but as I said, I found this information in few of the sources, so maybe it really was true. So this is what type of a person Vinnychenko was. Part of this, so he was mad. Vinnychenko was mad on Yablonska for rejecting him, but still they stayed friends, and still he helped her with her writings, and basically he was her editor at some point, because you see, no matter how this type of relationship was evolving, but still Yablonska, she knew that Vinnychenko is very respected artist, and writer. He's talented writer, he knows what he's doing, he's a professional, right? So she was showing her writings to Vinnychenko for him to edit them, but she didn't believe him for 100%. And because of that, she had another editor, but back in Ukraine, back in Lviv, it was Mikhailo Rudnitsky. He's a very famous Ukrainian art critic. He was her main editor. I think she was just showing Vinnychenko some of her work, so he would not be completely destroyed by the fact that he was rejected completely. But yes, when she came to France, for some period of time she worked as a model. She even worked a little bit as an actress. She was posing for some of artists also. In this period of time, she was in a very close relationship with an artist, Christian Cagliar, and they were basically living like a married couple, but they were not officially married. So this is how we can say emancipated she was. So that was a very meaningful, actually, person in her life, because he was a traveler also himself, and he inspired her to go to her first travel abroad. Outside of Europe, we'll say it like this, outside of Europe, and he was telling her about beautiful Morocco, and she got very lightened up about this, and she started to plan her own trip to Morocco. She made this trip, and she then wrote a book about this trip, The Charm of Morocco. So while she was preparing, she was telling with people, and she was telling people that I'm going to this trip to Morocco, to this amazing country, and I want to see all of these things, amazing, beautiful things, this mystical, even at this point, things on my own. And people were telling her oh my god, you're insane, to Morocco, it's so dangerous, because especially they were not recommending her to go to the parts where Sahara already starts, because at this point, there were a lot of tribes, a lot of different communities, how to call it, right? Arabian communities that were not conquered by France. So they were, this very freedom-loving and very nationalistic, or not, how to, again, I don't know how to call it, right? But basically, they were not very friendly towards Europeans. Which is pretty understandable. But still, however, she was not she was, la 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 la, I can hear you, I don't know what you're telling, I can speak your language. So she made this trip happen, and that was actually also, that was her first trip, and I can't imagine how blown away she was, because I have just 2 out of 3 of her novels about this trip. Unfortunately, I don't have this one about The Charm of Morocco. It's out of stock, unfortunately, but I already read her novel about China, and I'm telling you, I am in the 21st century, in 2022. I am blown away about the thing that she was describing in this book, right? And how, she got really into this culture. She got really into the life of these people. She was not just a basic tourist like we are right now. She was there. She saw the real thing. She saw the real people, the real life, real culture. And I can imagine how blown away people back then were, right? Because there was not something, there was not a thing to see this type of countries, especially, maybe if you Western Europeans, you were a bit more like free. Not a bit, you were free, you were able, to go. The only thing that you needed is money to go and visit all of this exotic country. I hate this word, I hate when everything that is outside of Europe is called exotic. This is like, and not just outside of West Europe, because you are calling out Slavic people also exotic. And obviously she never wanted to get back to live in Ukraine that was under the Soviet Union back then, because that was the cage. That's all. I saw one little passage from this Charm of Morocco. She, as I said, her travel like this was very super unique because she was able to take photos of harem. She was invited into this harem by one of the Kaid, right? Is this right word? Basically the head of this tribe. And she was able to make photos there, and she was able to make photos of different also like all of these people, which were, as I said, very unique things. So there no one before was able to do that. Or maybe very very rare people, but they were not able to make a photo of all of this. But in one of the passages from this book, she writes that you met this woman, a Russian woman, Nadia, and in Paris, like a lot of people knew her because she was posing herself as a princess with this Kaid. In fact, she was just the secretary of this Kaid. She was just helping him, stuff like that. So, I mean, a significant person, but not so significant as a princess, right? So she met, and they had like this very very little dialogue, because Nadia, she asked Sophia, "Are you Scandinavian?" As Sophia replied, "No, I am Ukrainian." And then Sophia writes that her displeasure increased at these words, and her lips quivered contemptuously. And I was like, oh my god. Nothing changes, so that was like written like almost 100 years ago, and still the same thing is going on. At first, so she wrote this book where she described all of her travels, and she named this book about Morocco. She sent it to Lviv to Mikhailo Rudnitsky, so he would edit it, he like would suggest something new, and everything was fine, but he was not fine with the name. He was really not fond of, it's not catchy, it's not interesting, like about Morocco, it's like an encyclopedia name. So he asked her to rename it. However, he didn't, he ended up renaming it himself, because he didn't wait for the response, because she was apparently, if I'm not mistaken, already somewhere in Asia, something like this. So he didn't have any time to wait, because he needed to put this book already to printing. This is how fast things were going on, and he decided that he will rename this book as Charm of Morocco. So in 1932 in Lviv, this book was published, and a part of that he also wrote a review about this book, and I will read you the quote. So, the book Charm of Morocco, colorful style, lively observation, cheerful smile, mainly style. This and only this is a manifestation of talent. Everything else, foreign words, grammatical errors, spelling, can always be corrected, crossed out, cut out before printing. The eyes with which the author looks at a world unknown to us cannot be inserted into the text. So editing me here, because, I somehow lost like 15 minutes, like in the middle of the video. I don't know why this file just got corrupted or whatever. It just didn't save itself. And there was like, a very important part also, an interesting part about her Chinese travels. So I will briefly retell you what was there. So after she came back from Morocco, she came back to France, to Paris, and she continued on working with, studying documentaries, documentary filming, documentary shooting, and she also had a very and she had a talk also with her friend Stepan Levinsky, so the guy that she met, writer, Ukrainian writer that she met in 1927 when she moved to Paris. And he was, apart, as I mentioned, for being a writer, he was fan of Eastern Asia. And this is how, through these talkings, Sophia, she got very inspired about this, and she decided that she wanted to go there herself and see everything herself. And this is exactly what she did. And to provide herself financially, she signed the contract, basically, in modern words. She was hired by Société Indochine Film Cinema, where she was needed to shoot some documentaries for them. And Sophia, she recalled herself that no one actually really believed that she would be able to shoot, at least something, because the population that was not very, they didn't trust Europeans, which is explainable. They were not friendly, obviously. And she, Sophia herself, she had some kind of situations where she was stoned a few times, so she was just, walking through the street, and someone would start to throw rocks at her. But she understood that, and she was not fine, obviously, but she what could she do, right? So she understood why these people are so against Europeans, and she was as I said, okay, fine. The thing also that was hard is that Chinese people back then, they believed that when someone is taking a photo of them, they are still in part of their soul. So this was I think even more problem, the bigger problem than their relationship with Europeans. And thus, Sophia, she needed to use different clever techniques to shoot at least something. So in her book, the second book that will be about China, From the Land of Rice and Opium, she described how she how she managed to take, to shoot the Chinese life. So she rented a place with windows that were facing a busy road, and she divided this place on two parts. So in the first part, it was official office, because she put it above the entrance, the inscription, I'm sorry, import-export. And first period of time, obviously, people will curious, they would come and they would oh, what are you selling here? And she will tell them we're selling planes, we're selling cars, something very, very expensive, so people were not able to afford themselves. And everyone found out that this is something that they cannot afford, and they were not practically going there to her to her shop. And and the other part was her real office, so where she had all of her photography equipment. And the thing also, she described it in a book, that she put a yellow paper on the windows. I myself, to be honest, didn't really understood how it works, but basically she was able to see everyone from inside, but no one was able to see her from outside. And she also used she put it in these windows, from outside you can see that some kind of posters, news, whatever. So it was made so people would come and they would be interested, oh, what is this, and at this point, in this moment, she would be standing behind the glass, and she would be doing photos of them. She would film them. I will read a quote from her. So in the end, I managed to film not only the daily movement of caravans, porters, carts, the march of convicts, but even the wedding march and ceremonial funeral of a Chinese Yunnan rich man. Yunnan is a part of like a region in China where she stayed and where she lived. So Sophia wrote in the article Chinese films for the magazine New House in 1934. After finishing this film, I declared the bankruptcy of my company so as not to arouse the suspicion or mistrust of my owner by too quick liquidation. In the China film, obviously these efforts were highly appreciated, and Yablonska, at the end of the day, she managed to capture moments that no one else could before her. She really shooted a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of interest in a lot of interesting places, and so she was able, and she was, I think, actually, it was like the first ever time that she was able to shoot inside of the Forbidden City in China. So that was a super unique thing. Another actually thing, another story that I want to tell you, like retell briefly, that she was telling in her book in this in the land of rice and opium. So she was telling, this is to addition how they were seeing the photos and how all of this was like stealing their souls and stuff. So she was going to mountains with her servant and her little caravan, and they stopped for a few days in one of the temples. So she wanted, to go and hike into the fields, mountains, and to shoot some of the nature. And she take a photo of one little boy, for one Chinese boy. And well, things were so unfortunate for her because the next day this little guy got missing. And obviously, and so he got missing. She didn't know about this at this point, and she decided to be like a nice person because she still tried to convince Chinese people that, well, it's not scary. The taking photos, it doesn't it doesn't make anything to you. So she tried to be nice, and she brought this photo, this picture, to the father of this boy. And she brought this. The boy's missing, obviously, already. She didn't know about that. And when the father saw this, and the whole family saw this, they got so enraged and so scared even. So, so that was a very, very dangerous situation to her, that she somehow, well, she managed to get out of it, obviously. At some point, so she was very... she was like her servant. He told her, he started to tell her that this is a very serious thing. This is a very serious situation, and we need to run like right now. She was, this very like proud, and this pride was was playing on her. And she told her, no, like why the hell would I run? I haven't done anything bad. Like I will convince them that I haven't done anything. But at the end of the day, so they ran away, because she saw how serious things started to get, actually. And the whole village was going to this temple where she was staying with fire, with some maybe even weapons and stuff like this, because they wanted to, well, God knows what they wanted to do with her, to run away from there. So, well, most probably what happened to this boy is that, in this part of China where she was traveling, there were a lot of pirates. And most probably the boy just got abducted and maybe then sold somewhere into slavery. Who knows? Or maybe he ran away himself. But I mean, I think like the most probably that he got abducted. But the timing was so bad. He was constantly getting into this type of situation. But because of her neutral, lightness, maybe neutral. Sometimes she was. She would put this naive look, and she would like play this, naive, stupid girl, and it would really help her at the times. When she came to China, she came with this mindset, European mindset, that those are barbarians. They don't know like what they are doing. We are like in Europe, the only one who know how to live and stuff like that. But she quickly understood, well, because she was living in real life. She was not going from hotel to hotel like European hotel to European hotel where there would be just another Europeans around her. She was living in real life. She was living in real Chinese villages, surrounded with real Chinese people, and they were showing her culture. Some Some were more friendly, some were less friendlier, but still she showed a true interest in that, and she learned very fast everything, and she genuinely wanted to learn that. And so that's why a lot of Chinese people were, well, fine with her. They tolerated her. They didn't like her at all, but they tolerated her because she was, she was respecting them. And as I said, she very quickly understood that they have completely different points of view, completely different philosophy, completely different life, compared to Europeans. And this is not her right. This is not her, well, job, right, to change anything, and it's not needed to be changed, actually. So she started to be not so full of pride, and she started to be, well, she started to learn the culture, and she started to respect this culture. And another thing also that she was describing in her book is that she got addicted to opium at some point, but she managed to get out of this addiction because when she was partying already, like to Southeast Asia, to the islands, to then Australia, she left this addiction in China because she said that opium, this is like the thing that belongs to China and nowhere else, so it needs to stay within China. And well, this is how she managed to get out of this, and her strong will, or how to call it, and she never got back to this addiction through her life. So yeah. As I already named, the book from the book from the land of rice and opium was printed in 1936. Then in 1939 was printed the next book. Far Horizons. In this book, she ended her the description of her travelings. The interesting also thing about her writing is that she was sending all of these works to the women's journals. So this was her main place of publishing, a part of of her own novels. And she, a part of actually of this, describing her travels, she also had a column where she was writing about some beauty tricks, and all of this stuff, like health, like self-care. She was sending her articles there, her tips to these journals, and she asked to people to send her back some of the recordings of folk music for different dances, like traditional Ukrainian dances, like hopak, for example, kozachok, like kolomyka. So this is different type of dances. She also was asking to send different embroideries. So she was introducing Chinese to Ukrainian culture, and she was as I said, she was taking this culture also from them. She was learning, and she was fascinated about this. She was noting some things that could be interesting to Ukrainians. So for example, she wrote that if we had such characteristics of the Chinese as their endurance, then with our black earth in 10 years we would become the first agricultural nation in Europe. Or for example, the Chinese never give up. In endurance competitions, he will always be the first. So you can see, she had some conflicts with them. She was not fond of some of their behaviors, obviously. But she understood that this is a cultural difference, and she cannot, in their country, put her own rules on them. So she was like, as I said, she was fine with that. She was irritated, but she was fine with that at the end of the day. At some point, when she started to become even more famous and popular, Polish people, Polish government, they tried to steal her from us, just like Russians are doing everything. And this united all of the haters of Sophia because she was so emancipated. This united them to protect her and to tell that, actually, you know what? No, she's ours. She's amazing. She's doing an amazing job. She's like this and that. She herself was defined herself as a Ukrainian. And this is a very hard question, to be honest. On our territory, in our art, and in this Soviet Union situation, because Russians are telling everything. Everyone is Russian. Everyone is Russian. Even though the artist or the writer or the photographers in our case are telling that I am Ukrainian, and their whole life was, identifying themselves as Ukrainians, and they were pushing Ukrainian culture. Still Russian. Like for example, Malevich. I bet all of you, when you're hearing Malevich, you would, I would ask you, who is Malevich? You will tell me, this is a Russian painter. Well, surprise, surprise, he was not. He was not Russian painter. He was a Ukrainian. And the thing is, he identified himself as a Ukrainian, not Russian. He was painting a lot of Ukrainians, actually, of Ukrainian peasants, no, not peasants. But, however, there were on the other side, there were still people that, like we have, for example, two authors like Gogol and Bulgakov. And I think if you like literature, you know these names. Both were Ukrainians. Gogol from Poltava region, Bulgakov from Kiev, lived like a lot in Kiev. We have a museum in Kiev dedicated to Bulgakov, but they were not identifying themselves as Ukrainian. However, also there was an interesting thing sometimes when Russians, ethnically Russians, that were born in Russia, they were like, for example, we have another author, or this Markovchuk. This is a pseudonym, so the real name was Maria Vilinska, was a woman. But I'm sorry, it's obvious for me. Markovchuk, it's a man's name. It's not a woman's name. So she took, basically. She didn't herself, but. It will take a lot to explain you, but she basically took this pseudonym Markovchuk, and she moved to Ukraine, and she was identifying herself as Ukrainian. She learned Ukrainian language, and she was actually so she knew Ukrainian language, so like very, very good. Moving on, in 1935. After a long period of time of traveling, so she finished her world travel, she got back to Halachina, to Lviv, where she was organizing some meetings, some readings, and she was greeted extremely warmly, because obviously people were fascinated about her, because the first woman, Ukrainian woman that traveled around the world. And part of this meeting, she was showing these photos. In one of the articles, it was written about after the meetings, some critique or something, a review of the meeting, I'll say it like this. So someone wrote in Galician press, we saw pictures luxurious, big, we heard the breath of Asia, big, mysterious, cruel. So again, you can imagine how people were blown away about that, because I am blown away. I have the book with her pictures, and I am blown away. I'm looking at these photos, and I'm really, really envy, to be honest, her. And those are very amazing photos. But I have the possibility to at least see all of this in the highest quality on my screen, let alone to go there, right? She was the only source for them to find out about this wide and big world. And many imagine Sophia as a self-confident and cocky femme fatale, but they were very surprised when a simple woman appeared in front of them. She was calm, she was reserved, she was very friendly, very elegant always. And I think this is the thing that really helped her, and this is the thing that saved her few times from different very dangerous situations. So when she got back to Paris, so Jean Ardin, again, this her employer, he notes Sophia's very introverted lifestyle in Paris, and according to him, she did not like to meet with Europeans because so as not to contaminate her Asian impressions with Western civilization. This is a rare woman, intelligent, brave, smart, and independent. She has all the features of a Slavic woman, so are bright, maybe exaggerated, which is the reason why she is unsociable and wild, describes Sophia Yablonska. Jean Ardin. Sophia was really not against it, because sometimes in different interviews or something like that, to different journalists, she would sometimes, ironically call what, there's no R there, call herself a wild Ukrainian. During her travels, Sofia Yablonska paid special attention to people. She took many portraits with her film camera, liked to be first to start a dialogue with strangers, and thus plunged even deeper into previously unknown world. First of all, the traveler was interested in researching the unknown. Where other tourists, they saw some kind of dirt, some danger, unsanitary conditions, Yablonska focused her attention on people and their emotions, on the peculiarities of architecture and interior decorations, on landscapes, on secret places, where she usually managed to get through all of these lively communications with locals. So as I said, because of that, she had a lot of very unique and interesting episodes. As I already mentioned, in Morocco, she was invited to visit his harem, which was a very unique thing back then, and get to know all of his wives, actually, even. He had like 7 of them. And in her travel essays, she described in details the features of the interior, the appearance of Arab woman, and quote, each is dressed in clothes of a different color, and their arms, like vipers, are wrapped up to the shoulders with bracelets. Their hair is shiny, smooth, finished with a fancy medallion hanging on the forehead, and touched the tattooed pattern between the eyebrows with the tip. The hands, ears, and chin are painted with colorful pattern. On Bali, she took part. She participated in different these indigenous ceremonies with Polynesians, and also she told the story how she was hunting a shark. Then her very big dream was actually to visit Tahiti and Bora Bora also, and well, she did it, obviously. And the travels was so impressed by the beauty and originality of these places that she stayed there for a while to fully enjoy being in a tropical land. There she actively communicated with locals and joined, their daily activities, studied their authentic life. In this part, so in this island, they accepted her as their own person, And they gave her even a local name, Teura, which apparently translates as a red bird. Don't know why red bird. Maybe it will be explained in her novel, this last novel. Maybe not. I don't know. So in total, what we can say, she visited Egypt. So she started from France, right? A part of Morocco. Then she started in France. She got to Egypt. Then she got to Djibouti. Then to Ceylon. Then to French Indochina. Then to Yunnan province in China. Then Siam, modern Thailand. Malay Island, Java, then to Bali, Tahiti, Australia, New Zealand, and then to USA, where she finished her travel in New York, and then she got back to Paris again. Another thing that I want to point out, a very interesting thing, is that in addition to her travelings, to her travelogues, she was also, as I said, she was writing some beauty tips. She was writing on beauty, on self-care, and etc. And, well, it is not surprising that such notes of Sofia were in great demand among our women from Galicia, from Galiciana. It's completely the same things. Ukrainian compatriots were very interested, obviously, to learn how women, in other countries, and especially such distant countries, take care of themselves and what they use. So Sofia generously, she shared advice and refers to experts she knows and trusts. And thus, in addition to the travel blogs, the Ukrainian also wrote articles in the style of modern beauty bloggers, basically. She was writing that every woman needs an hour a day to nurture her beauty. Another thing that she was writing also, in general, I advise women to use cosmetics as little and as late as possible, or not to use it at all if their natural qualities allow it, such as bright red lips, even beautiful eyebrows, natural blushes, qualities that are not easy to see in the city now. she wrote in 1930s. Another thing also that she wrote, she warned women against the desire to buy everything at once, and she was telling that it is very important to contact only good specialists. Every woman should have sufficient knowledge of cosmetics so as not to fall into the hand of charlatans, whose only goal is to sell as many of the most expensive creams and powders as possible, to give as much as possible messages, or change the color of her hair, of her nails and hair as often as possible. So you see, not a lot of things have changed from 1930s till now. Interesting also is her life with like personal life. So when she was traveling in 1932, when she was traveling in China, she met like some near like June, July, her future husband, Jean Audon. So he was an engineer, and I actually saw, different thing, because someone said that he was a diplomat, someone said that he was an engineer. I mean, an official book, in her book with photos, is it written that he was an engineer? So I mean, I will believe the official book than some articles. So I will call him also an engineer. In 1935, she got back to China with Jean Audon. They got married there in China in this year. They stayed for like another decade there. And so all of in total they would have 3 children, and all of their kids were born in Asia, 2 of them in China, and 1 of them in Vietnam. At this moment, she is a very successful, popular, well-known artist, and all because there were a very strong feminist movement in Galicia, she was like a feminist icon. However, I myself don't really like. I myself don't really agree on that, and I will explain why. It was mainly published in women's journal, and it is actually also showed the thing that how popular these journals was, how stable they were, that people were buying them, and this journal, sometimes they would send basically letters to their like authors, and they would like ask like, what's your plans for future, like do you want to still be published in our magazine and stuff like that. And one of these magazines, they wrote to Yablonska. So as I said, she was kids, she married, she's in China. They wrote to Yablonska and they asked that what are her plans for future, like, because they really want to continue publish her, because this was a very, very important and good material for their journal. But she replied that at this point, like as I said, she's with kids, she's at home, and she doesn't have any time to write. She doesn't want to write, actually. She wants to stay with kids. She wants to be a housewife. She wants to be a mother. She wants to like to be with her husband. She was like writing that I want to be with my husband. I want to serve him, and I think that when he's coming home, he deserves to be served and treated by me. And she was sold into the housing, into household, and I mean, this is what she wanted. This is really what she wanted. But Galician feminists, they were like outraged about this, and we have especially like one popular women author, Irina Vilde. So she was a well-known feminist back then in this part in Galiciana, and she was very like I don't know if I can use the word disgusted or something like that, so it was a very strong feeling. She was like very like, what the hell? And she wrote even to Yablonska. I mean, as far as I understand, I understood, they were not like friends, they were not really familiar, but she wrote even to her with, very sarcastic this letter, and told that it's very, it's such a pity to lose you for making borscht or something, like to cooking borscht to your husband. But you see, this is like my thoughts on that. I don't think that we can call Yablonska like a true feminist. Well, again, you can obviously you can write your thoughts in comments, because this is how I see things. But I will call her a very active feminist, because she, I mean, now she like, she might be the icon of emancipated woman, right? But not a feminist. Because I mean, in my head, those things are a little bit different. Emancipated woman and a feminist woman. I mean, again, I might be wrong, because I'm not like, like super deeply educated in this topic. But why I'm thinking like this, because she she was never actually, actively fighting for women's right. She is more this type of women that simply, enjoyed this certain, like, little but still achievements that were already made. And I think that, you see, we cannot really judge her, because, well, first of all, isn't that the thing that feminism providing, right? That you have a choice. Women have a choice. And you can choose to be a housewife, you can choose to be a, free-spirited, like, single woman doing whatever you want, whatever you like, or being, I don't know, very, like, this thing, businesswoman or whatever. So this is point one. I don't know why she was judged by her choice, because I mean, you were fighting for choices, right? And her choice was to combine this, to be a successful author, traveler, and be a mother. And the second, my point, why I don't judge her, because technically throughout all her life, she never really had her own place. She never really had her own home. Now she has her own home, her own family, children. She has her own place where they stayed not just for like 1 or 2 years, but they stayed for like more than a decade there. And obviously she was very fascinated, and she was like blown away by that she finally has her own place. And so this is, for me, it's not a surprise that she choose this type of life, that she choose to be a housewife, basically. But also to understand, it doesn't mean that, she just became this housewife that was completely into house chores and stuff like this. No, she still was this intelligent, clever woman. And plus, you see, when you live in China, and especially in this period of time, being a European, and especially from Ukraine, there were a lot of plenty of things that she was doing, like interesting thing. I think even going to the town, it was already like an adventure, interesting adventure. In 1939, then she very briefly got back to Halachina, to Ukraine, and that was the last time. That was the last time she visited her home country, and she will never ever come back. But yeah, so it was at the beginning of the year, in April. In April, she came to Ukraine. She came to Halachina, and she came because she wanted to take her mother from Halachina, mother and sister, and to move them to France. So someone, she apparently found someone who will carry for them there in France. This is what she did. Then in summer she returned back to spend some time with father. He stayed with her friends and stuff, and she left in September. So she left back to France, and from France she left to China. In autumn of 1939, the Soviet Union came to this land, and they occupied these territories. Yablonska, she was already in China in this period of time. And her father, from a Russophile, he became like, he saw the real face of all of this. And so on 29 of October of 1939, he killed himself. So he died because of the Soviet regime. He saw what it is. He saw the true face of this, and he were not able to handle this. So Yablonska, she was not even able to come to her father's funeral. Partly because of Soviet regime, partly because I think the tension in the world, because we are the World War II started. And so they relieved the World War II in China, and they got back to France in 1946. It is said that it is little known about her lifestyle in these years of World War. The only thing that we know is that when the Soviet regime started in Ukraine, she was not able anymore to send messages, to send letters to her friends that stayed in Halichina. So she lost some touch with them. However, she was able to communicate with her friend, a very good friend, Maria Kalitovska. She was the daughter of a Ukrainian author, and they were like a very good friends. And Kalitovska, so she was able to go to Belgium, to move to Belgium first in this period, and then she moved to France, and she like stayed the rest of her life there. And we like mostly we know about Sophia in this period of time from their correspondence. Marta, well, basically, she actually became in France her editor, also her translator, and her secretary. And later, they translated together with Yablonska all of her works in French. They and Marta Kalitovska, she published them then. After the death of Sophia. So I mean, if you know French, you can read, because I don't know whether there is English translation of all of this or not, but there is definitely French translation of a lot of things. So if you know French, if you are French, you are able to read this, which I highly suggest you to do. If you can find this, I really highly suggest you to do that. The family moved to France again. And, well, things were not very good, actually, for her, because Sophia suffered a series of losses starting from the moment they came back. So in 1946, her friend Stepan Levitsky, so this one that inspired her to go and travel to Asia, he unfortunately died. Later, her sister Olga died. Later, her mom died. So it was like 1948. Then her older son, Alain, he got missing in Algerian war. And then in 1955, her husband died. So thus, she was left alone with just her two sons. One of them, Jacques Mirko, he became a politician, and as I read, actually a very famous politician, so a very good known politician. The other, Danko Michel, he became an engineer, but there's not a lot of things known about him. After these losses, after her husband died, Sophia left Paris, and she moved to the island Noirmoutier, at the Atlantic coast. At this island, she built a villa. So she created a design of this villa, and she was able to make this thing happen. And this was actually such a good and successful design that people, the locals, they were very fond of this villa, and they were like, oh, we actually want this type of villas also. Can you make us something similar? So she was working, basically, we can say partly as an architect also. And why she moved to Noirmoutier? Because not so long before Jean's, her husband, death, they visited this island, and he said to her that this is where I would like to live, right in this corner. So she decided that she will, move there in memory of her husband. And here also a part of, doing this villa and stuff, she also started to write her novel, Memories about Father. Basically, this was like some kind of like psychoanalytical work where she was like writing her memories, how she was growing up in Ukraine, how she was growing up with father, her feelings about father, and where she, was analyzing how her relationship with her father affected her and basically made her. And as I said, she was herself telling that I am a continuation of my father. This is how close they are, and this is how she loved her father. Unfortunately, very, very unfortunately, she died. At this period of time, so she's like 60 plus, right? But still, it's not like her whole life is ahead of her, but at least 20 years. I think she had 20 years at least in front of her. But on February 4th, 1971, she died because of car crash. So she was driving to Paris because she was driving her new book of stories and sketches, 2 measures, 2 weights, to the publishing house, but unfortunately. So Sophia is buried near her husband. So first they were buried in town Vernois, but then in 1973 both of them were transported to this island Noirmoutier, and they are buried now there. So this book, actually, I saw that it is translated and it is published in Ukrainian. However, I have no idea whether it is published or not in well, either French or English. Other thing also is that we know that I think, again, it was from the letters to Marta Kalitovska, that when she was traveling, she actually wrote 2 other books for travelogues, but unfortunately she was either robbed or something happened or she lost them. Well, basically something happened that these things were... Oh, no, I remember. So when the Japanese occupied the territory of China, where she lived, they, because, you know, it was written in Ukrainian, but, well, back then, well, I think now also not a lot of you understand, you know, and see the differences in, like, Russian, Ukrainian, and just overall, you know, the writing in Cyrillics. So they thought that that was written in Russian, and they thought that she maybe, you know, was describing some kind of places for Russians, and she was a Russian spy, basically, and they confiscated that. And most probably they destroyed it. And she was like, she didn't really have time and maybe even desire to, you know, to recreate, to redo this work, to rewrite this this work. So allegedly we lost 2 of novels, and we would have had 2 more of this amazing travelogues that she wrote. So to summarize, she wrote the first one about Morocco, Charm of Morocco, was published in 1932. The second one was published in 1936, In the Land of Rice and Opium, about China. And third one, Far Horizons, in 1939. Amazing. What is this date today? The light is off because our infrastructure was like completely off, you know, and damaged even more. Okay, I will finish this video in the darkness, so I will not mumble more. And well, so fortunately she starts to be discovered more these years now. Her like books, this in Ukrainian, were published in 2018, and this book of photos also was published in 2018. So yeah, so we're finally discovering her again, and I really hope that you also discovered something new for... I mean, definitely you discovered something new for yourself. So yeah, so I will finish here. I will leave you here with this information, with this like video like this, and again, hope to, well, all the best, stay safe, have a good night, have a good morning, good evening, whatever, and hope to see you in the next video. That will be also another very amazing and interesting Ukrainian artist. So yeah, continuing the theme of Ukrainian women in art. And yeah, so hope to see you in the next video, and I mean, hope you will see at least something here. I knew that I needed to have candles, but well, I blew them up. Okay, whatever. So hope to see you in the next video, and as I said, stay safe, and bye bye.